Your account moved $400 this month. 400. You've got $100,000 parked in there. You did everything you were supposed to do. And the app is showing you basically the same number it showed you back in March. Your account moved $400 this month. 400. You've got $100,000 parked in there. You did everything you were supposed to do. And the app is showing you basically the same number it showed you back in March. And the number that comes back is so far out there that you close the tab and go start dinner. Here's the part nobody mentions in that exact moment. 2 women hit $100,000 in the same month. Same fund. Same account. Same return, year after year. 15 years later, one of them has $410,000. The other has $940,000. And last Tuesday, she told her boss she's cutting back to 4 days a week. Same fund. Same return. So where did the other $500,000 go? And which one of them are you currently lined up to become? I'm Yank, and I've spent a genuinely unreasonable chunk of my life staring at compounding tables trying to figure out why the math almost always works and the people almost never do. If your balance feels frozen, stick around, because this is a 3-part breakdown, where you actually stand right now, what the next 20 years are actually going to feel like, and the 4 things that quietly knock people out of the race before they ever finish it. Part 1, where you actually stand. And I have to open with something that's going to sound like a compliment for about 10 seconds and then stop feeling like one. You already cleared the hard part. Not the long part, the hard part. There's a specific line every portfolio crosses, and you are standing just past it right now. Nobody told you, because there's no money in telling you. Here's the line, it's the moment your money starts contributing more per year than you do. Run the numbers on yourself. At 7%, $100,000 throws off about $7,000 a year completely on its own. Are you putting in $500 a month? That's $6,000 a year coming from you. $7,000 coming from the market. You already crossed the line. You crossed it somewhere around $86,000. Congratulations, nobody sent a card. Nothing happened, and your app looked exactly the same the next morning. If you're putting in $1,000 a month, you cross that line around $171,000, which, from where you're sitting, is close. This is why people keep telling you the first $100,000 is the brutal one. It's not a saying, it's arithmetic. Everything you've built up to this point came straight out of your paycheck. You built it by hand. Everything from here on increasingly comes out of the market, which never gets tired, never gets laid off, and never has a kid who suddenly needs braces in April. So you're past the hard part. Why does it still feel like absolutely nothing is happening? Part 2, what the next 20 years actually feel like. Let's put a real person on this, because a spreadsheet is where your attention goes to die. Marisol is 38. She's got your exact $100,000. She puts in $1,000 a month, automatic, on the 15th. No side hustle, no crypto. She has never once looked at a chart. 3 numbers, find yourself in one of them. Put in nothing else at all, and she hits $1 million in about 33 years. Put in $1,000 a month, and she gets there in 21. $2,000 a month, and it's just under 16. Whichever one you just recognized as yours, hold on to it, because we're circling back to it. Now look at what that actually tells you about your options. Doubling her contribution from $1,000 to $2,000 a month, which for you would probably mean gutting your whole budget, buys 5 years. 5. And what does waiting 3 years to get serious cost you? 3 years. You didn't have to sacrifice a single thing for that one. You just had to not open the calculator tab. You think the lever you're pulling is money. It isn't. It's time. It was always time. And here's why time feels so painfully slow. Going from $100,000 to $1 million is 10 times your money. Sounds enormous, right? Now convert it into doublings. It's 3.32 doublings. That's it, 3 1/3. At 7%, your money doubles roughly every 10 years. But every doubling eats the same amount of time and hands you a wildly different amount of money. Watch her first 5 years, because they're going to be your first 5 years too. She goes from $100,000 to about $140,000 over 5 years. That's roughly a used sedan spread across an entire presidential term. Now watch her last 5 years, right before she crosses $1 million. She goes from around $760,000 to over $1 million, a jump of well over $300,000 in 5 years. Same 5 years. Same percentage. Same everything. 7.5 times the money for identical effort, identical discipline, identical fund. The only thing that changed is that she'd already been doing this for 30 years. Which means the version of you who actually gets rich off this is a version of you who is much older, and much more patient, than you are right now. So let me tell you what year 11 looks like, because this is the part nobody puts on camera. Marisol opens the app on a random Wednesday night, 11 years in. The balance reads about $400,000. And instead of feeling good, she does the math. And the math says she isn't even halfway there. And she's 49. And the thought that crosses her mind is the exact thought that's going to cross yours. Is this actually working, or have I just been quietly wasting a decade being sensible? That's the moment. That's where you're most likely to quit. Not during a crash. Crashes are loud, you'll see them coming, and you'll mostly hold on through them. You quit on an ordinary Wednesday. Nothing's wrong, nothing's happening, it's just you and a number that refuses to move. And it feels like something specific. It feels like watching a friend post a crypto screenshot while your account moves $400. It feels like doing mental math at a red light about whether you'd be further ahead if you just bought a rental property. It feels like being disciplined for a decade with nothing visible to show for it except a number on a screen your brain refuses to believe is real. So let me take something off your shoulders. That flatness isn't a discipline problem. It isn't a personality flaw, and it isn't proof you picked the wrong thing. It's the actual shape of an exponential curve, which stays almost flat for a long stretch and then very aggressively stops being flat. You aren't failing at this. You're standing in the boring part of a graph that was always going to be boring right there. If compounding were a movie, half the theater walks out during the second act and misses the entire ending. And honestly, who could blame them? You just have to not be one of them. Which brings us to part 3, the 4 things that actually take you out. And notice what's not on this list. Picking the wrong fund isn't on it. Missing the next big stock isn't on it. What actually takes you out is much dumber than that, and also much more forgivable, and you should hear that before anything else. Number 1, fees. The most boring catastrophe in all of finance. Take your $100,000, run it 30 years at 7%. In a fund charging 0.03%, you finish with about $755,000. In a fund charging a full 1%, same market, same 30 years, you finish with about $574,000. That's $180,000 gone, not to a crash, not to a bad call you made, but to a number printed in a document you skimmed once, for jobs ago, on a laptop you don't even own anymore. Marisol pays 0.03% purely because someone once told her to go check. That's the entire difference. 1% sounds like a rounding error. It is a rounding error, it's just rounding in a direction you're going to feel for 30 years, because the fee doesn't come out of your gains. It comes out of your compounding. Every dollar of fee is a dollar that never gets the chance to double 3 1/3 more times. Number 2 is the one that actually does the real damage. And I want you to meet the person living it. Priya is 36. She's got about $110,000 in her 401k, roughly what you've got. She just landed a better job. Better title, better pay. Good news, the kind you'd actually celebrate. Then the envelope shows up. She opens it at the kitchen counter, coat still on. It's a form asking what she wants to do with her old plan. 3 boxes. One of them says, pay out. And her new apartment deposit is due. The movers want a card number. And there is $110,000 sitting inside a piece of paper on her counter, looking extremely reasonable. What percentage of people check that box? A study published in Marketing Science, tracking more than 160,000 departing employees, found it's 41.4%. 41.4. And 85% of those people empty the account completely. One analysis put the lifetime cost of a single mid-career cash out at around $266,000 by the time you're 65. That's not a rare mistake. That's basically a coin flip, and it costs more than every fund decision you'll ever make combined. And nobody does it because they're careless. Nobody. They do it because the system dropped a large check into a rough week and made the destructive option the easy-shaped one. Look at the design. Your rollover is 3 phone calls and a form. Your cash out is 1 box. You take it while you're exhausted and the movers are waiting outside. Number 3 is selling when things get ugly, which, at some point, you are absolutely going to want to do. Not Priya's kind of mistake, where you're cornered. This one you'll walk into feeling clever. You already know you shouldn't. So here's the part that makes it hopeless for you, not just unwise. Over the 20 years through 2025, staying fully invested multiplied your money roughly 7-fold. Miss only the 10 best days, and you finish with about half that. 10 days out of 5,000. And here's the detail that should end the argument entirely. 7 of those 10 best days landed within 2 weeks of one of the 10 worst days. Morningstar found the median gap between a worst day and a best day is 7 days. 7. That's not enough time for you to change your mind and get back in. So think about what that actually means. The rebound isn't a separate event from the crash. It's the same event. You cannot flinch at the bottom and still catch the top, because they happen in the same week. There is no exit available to you that doesn't also cost you the entry. The good news, you're probably going to hold, because most people do. When things got genuinely scary in 2020, Vanguard found fewer than 0.5% of its investors went fully to cash. And more than 80% of those who did would have come out ahead doing absolutely nothing. It just doesn't feel that way, because the people who panicked are the ones posting about it. Nobody screenshots themselves calmly doing nothing. Number 4 is the one nobody warns you about. Your target is moving. Meet Calvin. He's 41, with the same $100,000 you've got. He decides $1 million is his number. Say he gets there in 20 years. At 61, he opens the account, sees 7 figures, and feels something. Here's what he actually has, and it's what you'd actually have too. At 2.5% inflation, $1,020 years from now buys roughly what $610,000 buys today. He didn't become a millionaire. He became someone with $600,000 in purchasing power wearing a millionaire's hat. Welcome to your own goal, quietly deflated. Run it backward and it's worse. Your $1 million today buys about what $375,000 bought in 1990. The word millionaire quietly loses roughly half its meaning every 25 years, and it's going to keep doing that whether or not you're ready. So what's your real number? If you're 20 years out and you want what $1 million means to you right now, you're actually aiming at something closer to $1.6 million. Not because you're being greedy, because you can do subtraction. And I'd rather hand you that number today than let you discover it at 61. And while we're being straight about numbers, what return should you even plan around? Because if you plug in 10%, everything gets fast, easy, and fictional. Valuations right now are sitting near the highest they've ever been. Vanguard's 10-year outlook for U.S. stocks is roughly 4 to 6%, with Goldman closer to 6.5%. So build your plan at 6% real. If you end up getting more, great, you arrive early and you're thrilled. Build it at 10%, actually get 6%, and you find out at 63 instead. And there's no version of that conversation that goes well for you. At 6%, Marisol's $1,000 a month takes 23 years instead of 21. That's your entire penalty for being honest with yourself. 2 years. Now, before I hand you the list, let me argue against myself for a second, because you deserve that. You could reasonably say, Yank, this is just index fund propaganda. Maybe good active management actually earns its fee. So let's check. The most recent SPIVA scorecard found that 79% of active large-cap U.S. funds underperformed the S&P 500 last year. Over 15 years, it's about 90%. In the year-end 2025 report, there wasn't a single one of 22 U.S. equity categories where most active managers beat their benchmark over 15 years. Not one. And now let me turn that same skepticism on my own side. You've probably seen the stat that investors badly underperform their own funds. Dalbar publishes a version of it, and the number swings wildly. Dalbar is an industry firm whose methodology academics criticize pretty hard. Morningstar's cleaner estimate is about 1.2 percentage points a year. Then a new paper published earlier this year in the Financial Analyst's Journal argued that most of even that gap is a mathematical artifact, and that real timing costs are closer to 0.1%. So the gap is real, but smaller than the industry enjoys telling you, which is roughly the right amount of skepticism to bring to any statistic that conveniently recommends hiring the person quoting it. Okay. Your list. It's 6 things, and it's short. 1. Take your entire employer match. Americans forfeit about $24 billion a year in money they were already handed. Are you leaving any of it on the table? Go check today. It's a guaranteed 100% return. It exists nowhere else in finance, and you'd be skipping it because a form is annoying. 2. Never cash out when you change jobs. This is Priya's box. Roll it over. 20 minutes, mildly irritating, worth more than every fund you will ever pick. 3. Get your costs under 0.1%. Go pull up your account right now and find the expense ratio. If it starts with a 1, you're looking at a $200,000 problem written in very small font. 4. Automate it, so you make the decision once instead of every month. This is the entire mechanism behind Marisol's success, and it isn't discipline. Your best predictor isn't how strong-willed you are, it's how few chances you gave yourself to not do it. 5. Own the whole market. Buy a target date fund, or 3 index funds, and stop there. Here's my favorite finding in all of this: target date fund investors had the smallest behavior gap of any category, about 0.1 percentage point. The single most boring product in American finance quietly beat almost everybody, apparently because it takes the steering wheel out of your hands. 6. Raise your target. Do what Calvin did. Aim at $1.6 million, and set your calculator to 6%. That's it. That's the whole strategy. I know it isn't what a video with this title is supposed to hand you. There's no secret allocation. There's nothing to buy. And I'd rather give you the thing that actually works than the thing that films well. I'm not a financial advisor, and none of this is personalized advice. It's what the arithmetic and the research describe, and your own circumstances will change what any of it means for you. So what happens to the 3 of them? Marisol gets past her Wednesday. She doesn't do anything clever about it. She just stops logging in for a while, and that's the entire intervention. Around year 15, something shifts. The account starts earning more in a good year than she does, and it stops feeling like saving and starts feeling like a second income that never calls in sick. You won't see that shift coming, and you won't be able to feel it arrive. Calvin finds out his finish line moved, resets to $1.6 million, and adds 4 years. 4 years is real, and it costs him something, and it would cost you something too. But he gets to be right at 65 instead of surprised at 65. If you're ever offered that trade, take it. It isn't close. And Priya doesn't take the box. There's no scene for it, no dramatic moment, nothing to post. She fills out a rollover form at that same kitchen counter, on a Tuesday, mildly annoyed, and that's her $266,000 Tuesday. Your best financial decisions are almost always going to be the least cinematic ones. Last thing, and then you can go. Fidelity counts roughly 850,000 401k millionaires right now, about 1.5% of everybody with an account. So what do they have that you don't? It isn't income. It isn't timing. It very much isn't stock picking. On average, they logged about 26 years of simply not stopping. That's the actual secret, and it's a terrible one. It doesn't fit on a thumbnail, and nobody's selling a course on it. But you're already past your hard part. The market is already doing more of the work than you are. Your only remaining job is to not get in its way while it finishes. So the question was never really whether your money gets to $1 million. At 6 or 7%, with anything automatic going in, it mathematically will. The question is whether you'll still be holding it when it does. Tell me where you are on that timeline in the comments below, or come find us in our school community. And if this helped you, subscribing genuinely helps me out. Turns out compounding works on channels too. I'll see you in the next one.